The next topic we have is the superconducting cable that Microsoft says will solve its AI issues. Whether or not
I
that's
want to hear about this.
yeah, this is Microsoft exploring a new high-temperature superconducting cable to meet its massive power demands in data centers. I think the thing is called. Let me see if I get the term right for it. HTS, and it's a new breakthrough technology that basically will allow Microsoft to increase its power delivery efficiency and reduce physical infrastructure needs, as well as easing community impact as AI continues to drive electricity consumption. To that note, I think it's saying AI data centers are straining U.S. electrical grids, with the national research projecting that the data centers could consume 12% of U.S. electricity by 2028, tripling, and that's a tripling in just the last 4 years. A single hyperscale campus now requires over 1 gigawatt of power, which is basically enough to power 750,000 homes, just the data center by itself. And so Microsoft is seeing this new superconducting cable as a way to generate that amount of electricity without needing the potential land use or expanding on what it already currently has. The HTS cables can carry electricity with zero resistance, eliminating heat loss and voltage drop. They're smaller, lighter, and more compact than copper or aluminum conductors, which is enabling a denser data center layouts and faster build-outs. Microsoft is in the early test of this HTS line and says it can deliver the same amount of power as traditional cables while occupying far less space. Now, the catch is, I believe that these cables need to be super cool. And I think it's to somewhere between minus 210 or 230 degrees. And in order to produce that kind of cooling, you still need energy. So that's the, take with one hand and take, 5 more with the other hand kind of situation, which is great that they figured this out and that they're testing it. Maybe they'll figure out a way to reduce the amount of electricity it costs to cool these things. But I wrote, kind of as the cynic that I am, this is another solution Microsoft has come up with, and we've reported because we're Microsoft centric. In the last 5 years, they've come up with, I feel like 4 to 5 different new technologies to optimize their data centers. But at the end of the day, they're still building more data centers. That seems to be the key conceit here, is that we have new technologies that'll optimize stuff. They were building data centers and tossing them into the ocean saying, that's a new way to cool them. I think they've since pulled those out of the ocean, if I'm not mistaken. I forget why. Then they came up with recycling the water through collecting the vapor, because a lot of data centers basically toss water onto the servers to cool them. That water evaporates, and then they toss new water because they can't use contaminated water. But Microsoft came up with a new technology that was supposed to take that vapor, recycle it, so they can keep using that same amount of water without having to generate new water. I don't know where they're at the process of that one. There's also different ways to. I think they were using different materials than basic concrete. They were using new wood and metal ways to conduct heat and electricity through the walls or whatnot. Was another thing. Now there's this new bet on the cables. What are your thoughts on them coming up with new technologies, but perhaps missing the forest through the trees of more data centers?
I think it's great that we come up with new technologies and new ways to make our technologies more efficient and supposedly cheaper to operate. But you hit the nail on the head there. When you've got to pay to keep this cool, to keep it efficient, you kind of knock out some of that, or you may knock it all out. We don't have numbers in front of us, but you kind of, negate the fact of, I thought you were doing this to be more efficient. And I think, to your point, there's some public education that has to go on here too, because we recently had some winter storms here, and we don't get winter storms, and people have been all up in arms about recent power bill increases because our power bill has doubled and tripled over the last couple of years here. I mean, power is, astronomical in the last couple of years compared to what it used to be here. And people are putting in message boards and Facebook, oh, go to the data centers, go to the data centers. So I put in a response to one of these smart aleck comments. I said, okay, that's fine. Let's go shut down the Facebook data center. Let's go shut down the TikTok data center. Let's go shut down the YouTube data center. Now, how do you feel about it? They didn't like that. That wasn't something they thought about. Because people have heard the word data center at this point, and they've seen it on the news. Data center. Oh, that's power. Shut that down. There's not the education there that we all use data centers many times a day, every day, just to be connected. And that's the way I view this. It's not just for AI. We all use data centers. You log into your Gmail account. You log into to pay your power bill. You log in to pay your streaming service. You log in to use your streaming service. You're using a data center somewhere. So I think it's good that we're coming up with these technologies to cool them, to make them more efficient. But I don't want to see this cooling cable come out and deployed in a data center and somebody not ask, what's it costing you to keep that cool again?
Oh yeah. One of the other some of the other key challenges, just so our listeners are educated, was it's a high cost to do this new manufacturing of this cable. It requires the complex cryogenic cooling and a reliance on rare earth metals at a time where we're having concentrated supply chain issues, with China, which is one of the largest areas of locations with rare earth minerals. So this doesn't seem very sustainable in a way, like over the long term is what I'm saying. If you're having to already use rare earth minerals in a constrained time frame. But and so I don't see them replace. What my point is, going forward, they may start making these or using them. They're not going to replace some of the old stuff. So you'll still have some of that unoptimized energy drainage from some of the old data centers. But new ones going forward might be the trick. Again, this is all testing. Who knows? They might come up with a new solution in another 6 months that we'll be talking about as a new unicorn for data centers. With that being said, let's get into GeForce Now. That is something you brought up.
Yes, this is another one of those data center things, because you don't have GeForce Now without, guess what, folks? A data center. So while I'm getting this up on my screen, we know that GeForce Now has recently turned 6 years old. So we've been able to stream games for 6 years. Doesn't seem like it's been 6 years, but cloud gaming is coming on strong. We know Xbox has xCloud. We know Amazon has Luna. There's GeForce Now, and there's probably somebody else out there that I have not thought about. But the key,
network, I suppose.
Go ahead, say that one more time.
There's a PlayStation Network, I think, or whatever.
Yep. There's also that one that failed called Stadia. Well,
why? The horse has been dead for years. You're still beating on it. Give it up.
I've got to beat that horse a little bit, but GeForce Now is doing something pretty cool. They have made their way to Amazon Fire TV sticks, mainly the 4K sticks, the second generation 4K Plus and 4K Max, and the first generation 4K stick. You get H.264 streaming at just 1080p, so it is a little bit of a downside for that. We're starting out at 1080p. I'm sure they're going to figure out 4K and high frame rates probably as an extra cost, or maybe even updated hardware from Amazon. So this gets you in front of your TV. It gets you away from that thing that I like to talk about and I still like to use, the console. So now you can stream on all your devices in front of your TV, your Amazon Fire TV, and you've got your Windows app, your Mac app, and then your good old-fashioned web browser. You've got an Android app and an iOS app for streaming from GeForce Now. Now, again, that is a subscription cost, and we've just been talking about lowering subscriptions. So GeForce Now is a subscription cost. I think the ultimate tier is somewhere around $99 a year. Gets you 4K and 120 frames in some games and 240 in some cases if you've got the hardware and the bandwidth to support it. So, Xbox, are you paying attention? I'm sure you are. I believe Xbox is already on the Fire Stick. It came last year sometime, maybe the end of 2024. So now we've got competition in the gaming space of which app are you going to load on your TV to game. So how do we compete here? What does Microsoft do? What does GeForce Now do? Or what does some of these other aspiring streaming companies do? Because do they just put the app on the device? I don't think that's going to work. I think we're going to have, kind of like we have TV and entertainment streaming wars. I think we're about to have a game streaming war.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's part of the evolution of the console into the just play your games anywhere on any device kind of thing, which again, Microsoft should be better suited for. The problem is they're out in front with too high of a price, I think. I think, just same as we've been talking about, people trying to understand or estimate what services they need. There will be a cohort of people who say, you know what, at this point, Steam is the better option. Yes, I could stream and have a subscription to Game Pass. I could have a subscription to PlayStation. I could have a subscription to GeForce. Or I could just wait to purchase the one game that I'm going to be playing for the next 6 months on Steam. It isn't worth it for me to pay $30 to Xbox every month for a game that I play once for 6 months. If I can just get that same game for $30 on Steam. So while we're going to have those streaming wars, I think Microsoft, hopefully, ideally, and again, this is the free market working. When you have more of these competitive streaming services, that it will force Microsoft to offer bundles like YouTube, saying, all right, well, fine, screw it. We can't do the $30 one, or maybe we'll keep $30, but in between the $30 one, there are 7 more tiers that offer, a $15 one, a $9 one, a $20 one, and you're able to choose those. And these are the different things we offer with that. They'll be forced to do that versus saying, all right, here's our free $14 and $30 options. Because again, with more competition and offering, it just also depends on the games too, I suppose, the types of games, the types of players. But I'm all for more competition. I hope it does heat up. I hope Sony steps in and forces Microsoft to figure out its strategy for
somebody's going to have to force Microsoft's hand here, I think. And and not to go too far in the left field, I think we have talked about it a few times recently about Microsoft becoming more of a game publisher.
And they're already that now. For all intents and purposes, they've given up on consoles, at least hardware, for the next 3 to 5 years.
So, they've essentially got free infrastructure there for Xbox Cloud. So how much of that infrastructure do they let the price eat to become competitive? I mean, I had to renew my Game Pass membership. Listen to me, can't even get it out. Game Pass membership this past week for the first time in the new pricing. And 3 months was $82, something like that. So I went over to I'm gonna start looking for something cheaper, because sure, there's still got to be some deals left. Amazon kept the $59.99 deal up through Christmas of this year. I should have stacked up on some memberships then, but I went to G2A that had the same thing for like $61. It's G2A.com. I got 3 more months, and it made me think. That's $60. That breaks out to $20 a month. I use it. I get it. I that is one subscription I pay for. I get my money's worth. I enjoy it. But how long can Microsoft sustain that? Because once GeForce Now gets on all of these devices, nobody has ventured over to Roku yet. And Roku seems to be the inexpensive streaming device that a lot of people have. So once these streaming services, game streaming services, have gone to all of the cheap streaming devices, Microsoft better do something, or they're going to be left watching.
Oh yeah, and I mean, again, not to get off on more tangent, but after watching the PlayStation showcase or whatever they had,
Yes.
this is actually, we didn't do this, but maybe we did. Well, I'll bring the circles back to the end of the pod where we'll have our rant, because I have a rant about Microsoft dropping the ball on exclusives. And again, at the end of the day, it becomes the games. The games are not, I mean, yes, the accessibility of it, but gamers are so used to having hardware. That's the mentality of like, hey, I want to play, so I have a controller, I have a TV, I have a desktop, I have a laptop. Like they're bought in on the hardware that makes the game experience better. But at the end of the day, it's still the games. Like you gotta have the game that people want to play and want to be around and have that conversation about. And Sony showed a bunch of them yesterday that I think a lot of people are saying, hey,
They
I want to
did.
be in that experience. And that will trump the idea of accessibility. Yeah, I could play a ton of in-app purchase games on my phone. It's right there. It's easy. It doesn't mean that it's the game I want to play. That's the game that's going to be the talk of the town or the conversation starter or the community builder online. So we'll get into that rant after this. But